A decade ago, Emperor Heraclius revitalized the Byzantine Empire and conquered the Fertile Crescent of modern Palestine, Iraq, Iran, and Syria from the empire's longtime foes, the Sassanids. Now, Khalid ibn al-Walid leads a dramatic invasion of these newly conquered lands. He destroyed a Byzantine army and captured Damascus in 635 before another army could be hastily assembled, led by Vahan, to chase the Rashiduns out. Now the Rashiduns make their stand south of Damascus with their backs to the Arabian desert. They are united by purpose, and know that this could be their final chance to break out of the desert. A Byzantine victory would reverse the gains of the Rashiduns and push them back into the Arabian desert. A Rashidun victory would establish control over the Fertile Crescent and permit further conquest to impose Muslim authority. Khalid deploys his force in 4 separate armies that operate largely on their own. They are backed by the Rashidun cavalry, one for each flank, one for the center, and another kept in reserve. Vahan deploys his force similarly in 4 separate armies, except that they are larger and each boast their own cavalry units. Vahan also keeps a sizable cavalry reserve to the rear. The first day of battle begins with a series of individual duels between each side's elite. The duels are dominated by the Rashidun champions. Vahan ends the slaughter of his officers and his force's morale by sending his frontline infantry to probe the Rashidun front. Vahan knows that he must use sheer weight of numbers along with a crowded, broad front to achieve at least one breakthrough, which can then be exploited. Khalid recognizes the inferiority of his force and must exhaust the Byzantines before even considering an attack. Vahan's limited offensive features only moderate effort on both sides before dusk ends the action. On the second day, Vahan launches a resolute assault. He pins the Rashidun center while aggressively attacking the Rashidun flanks. Some infantry on these flanks retreat to camp under pressure of the Byzantine attack. This forces each flank to commit its cavalry in a counterattack, but they too retreat to camp, critically weakening both Rashidun flanks. The Rashidun soldiers' wives berate and throw rocks at the soldiers, who shamefully arrive at camp until they return to battle. They rejoin the battle just in time to save their respective flanks from complete destruction. Khalid then commits his cavalry reserve to restore his right flank, before shifting it over to restore his left flank. The Rashidun center counterattacks in concert with these restorative attacks, and succeeds in nudging the Byzantine center back. Heavy but inconclusive fighting ensues along the original front, until dusk begins to fall and Vahan must withdraw. On the third day, Vahan launches another determined attack. This time he again pins the Rashidun center, but focuses on the weakened Rashidun right flank and leaves their left flank unmolested. Khalid rejoices that his left flank can rest, but must again commit his cavalry reserve, merely to re-establish the original front. Casualties pile up on both sides, but are significantly higher on the Byzantine ranks, which are not filled with religious fervor. Dusk and mutual exhaustion again end the day's action. On the fourth day, Vahan again seeks to shatter the Rashidun front by breaking through at one point and then exploiting another once Khalid commits his reserves. Vahan attacks with his 2 left-wing armies, while advancing with his 2 right-wing armies, which are to wait until Khalid commits his reserves before launching their own attack. Vahan's plan begins well. His left-center army pushes through the opposing Rashidun army and is only contained by cavalry reserves. Sensing the unfolding disaster immediately, Khalid orders a spoiling attack on the Byzantine two right-wing armies to throw them off balance and delay any action by them. The desired effect is achieved, as these armies retreat a short distance and are in no state to carry out an attack. The situation is dangerous for Khalid as his entire force is engaged in battle against a superior force. Through fierce fighting, Khalid is able to restore the original front on his right. Meanwhile, the success of the Rashidun left-wing armies is ended when the Byzantines deploy their archers en masse. The Rashidun archers are outranged and can do nothing but retreat with the rest of the two armies. This is known as the Day of Lost Eyes for the 700 Rashiduns who lose an eye in this arrow barrage. The Byzantine right-wing armies quickly exploit this disorder and attack, but they are also tied down in a slogging match, which is balanced out when the Rashidun women take up arms and join the battle. The fighting continues until dusk, and exhaustion again force a Byzantine disengagement. Both sides take the fifth day to rest, masked by pointless negotiations and challenges. The ranks of both forces have thinned greatly, but is more noticeable in the Byzantine force, which has suffered more casualties attacking than the Rashiduns have suffered defending, as is often the rule. On this day, Khalid resolves that the Byzantine morale and ranks have been weakened enough to launch his first, but necessarily only attack. He therefore gathers all of his cavalry into a single, powerful strike group. Vahan still possesses fresh cavalry reserves which have yet to engage in battle. Whether they are held back for the chance to completely annihilate the Rashiduns in the pursuit of an anticipated battlefield victory, or remain static due to major problems in the Byzantine chain of command, is unclear. In the night, Khalid detaches a unit to guard the bridge over the wadi, in this case an abnormally steep dry river. Khalid opens his assault by pinning the Byzantine front with his infantry and sweeping around Vahan's left flank. Vahan also gathers a large cavalry group in reserve, but it is unprepared to respond decisively at the time of attack, and so the Byzantine left army disintegrates, exposing the left center army's flank in turn. Inconclusive fighting continues among the infantry, while the opposing cavalry engage in the Byzantine rear. The determined Rashidun cavalry are more mobile and harass the heavier Byzantine cavalry until they flee the battle altogether. The Byzantine infantry fight valiantly, but can do nothing against assailment from the front, left, and now rear. They begin to disengage and retreat. The Byzantines are dismayed to find their escape route barred by a Rashidun force. They briefly attempt to dislodge them, but are unable to, and must flee the pursuing main Rashidun force. The Byzantines are bottled into a confined space where they fight savagely as they have throughout the battle, but must eventually try to escape across the wadi in desperation. Many do not make it across. Emperor Heraclius was understandably distraught by the decisive defeat which undid his conquests the previous decade. The Rashiduns conquered Palestine and Syria soon after the defeat, and eventually the prized Byzantine province of Egypt. This battle ensured these lands were under Muslim control, not Christian.
This animation was created by Jonathan Webb and narrated by Tom Fitzmaurice. For more great battles, visit www.theartofbattle.com. It's like a museum, except not boring.